so I want to do a workshop, not really a presentation, but a workshop about freelancers. So how freelancers can cooperate better, and about initiative we just started in Munich, where I come from. So, and since this is not going to be a lesson, something more interactive, my first question to you would be, how many of you are freelancers?
Most of us.
Most of you. And who of you works with freelancers but is not a freelancer themselves, so maybe is looking for freelancers, etc.? So you three are recruiters, or and you are recruiters too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Freelancers, and we also are freelancers.
I see. Is it difficult for you sometimes to find enough freelancers?
Yeah, sure. It's always difficult to find a good specialist.
Mm-hmm.
The same with freelancers. So that's all.
Are you located here in Russia? Are you from Russia?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I understand in Russia, many freelancers work only for foreign companies. This is why I ask.
We are special freelancers.
Okay. So I will just give a rather short introduction about some of the ideas behind this new project, and then I will ask you many more questions. So, first, about myself. So I have been a freelancer for around 30 years now. Of course, 30 years ago there was no Drupal. I started with completely other things, but the last few years I focused on Drupal. So I studied systems sciences at the Open University in the United Kingdom. It's the only university I know that offers courses in systems science. And I specialized on complex self-organizing systems, and communities are one form of self-organizing systems. So I spent a lot of time with studying and working out concepts about communities and self-organizing organizations like that. Okay. So this is why I put such a focus on community building within Drupal. And the third thing is I organized the meetings of the Munich Drupal user group. And in Munich, Drupal user group is quite active. It's also rather financially successful. Maybe some of you know Wunderkraut, the second largest Drupal shop on the planet, and it originally started in Munich when around, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, 4 people, no, originally it was 5, but one left, decided to create Wunderkraut. Later they joined, so our community does lead to financial success too. Okay, so most of us freelancers are quite able to feed our families and ourselves well with Drupal projects, but my experience is always that there's room for improvement. So sometimes we are just completely booked out and we still get requests for other projects. So who of you can identify with that situation? Who knows that? Is this your reality too, or maybe is this just a Western European phenomenon? So do you also have this situation sometimes?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes they just do not go on searching, because they know that even if I find some projects, I won't be able to accomplish them myself. And I still don't have much trust within the community, which I want to acquire.
Yes.
But the problem is that I want to be sure that this project will go to the right which will lead to win-win, and not to ruin my own reputation, because for any project I handle to another freelancer, I'm responsible for it.
Yes.
So that at least the project manager from the other side sees me as the person responsible, and I feel that it's my responsibility.
So this means if you can see a system that handles trust, if you can see any reputation or trust management system that maybe would help you. Do you think that would help you? If you can imagine like a system like, or you don't have this here in Russia, do you know eBay? Or websites like that where they have a reputation system, so if somebody has done many, or on Odesk, of course, you gain a reputation after some time. Would that help you to have more trust if somebody has a long-standing reputation, positive reputation, even if you do not know this person? Do you think that would help?
I think that, being quite a newcomer to the community, but I still lack some experience. And that's why I'm here. To understand that when to find people, to find colleagues whom I can handle some extra projects and who can handle me, their own extra projects, and to ensure this mutual trust and cooperation.
Okay, I think later we find time to discuss this in more depth. So another thing is, which you more or less already mentioned, together we could do larger projects sometimes. Sometimes I do not get projects which sound interesting because the potential customer says, but you are alone. Can you bring a whole group of people? When I say no, when they give them project to a Drupal shop, they pay much more money. Maybe they are not really happy about it, but this is what happens if I cannot bring together a whole project group. Well, same question again. Does this also relate to you? Do you also have projects sometimes which you could only get if you had a larger group available?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing is, sometimes then we have a gap. One project ends, sometimes they end very quickly. Like now in the crisis, some companies run out of money and suddenly it's over and you do not have something else. And then we could need one of the projects of which somebody else is just saying, no, I cannot do this. So somebody else is just rejecting a project which you could need. Does this happen to you sometimes? Or are you completely booked out all the time?
Of course it happens.
Okay. Now, interestingly, I asked this because yesterday I spoke with a freelancer, and he had a different viewpoint, and this is very interesting for me. He had a different view on that. He said he's happy if it's not. If I understand you right, correct me if I do you wrong, but he is quite happy if he is not booked out all the time. He does not really need more. He says he does not really need projects from others because he's happy with what he gets from Odesk. And of course, you do not really need to create new systems if people are happy anyway where they are. So it just makes sense if some changes would be helpful. So I think if we cooperated, many or actually all involved could profit somehow. So freelancers who are just having a gap could fill it. You could do projects together which are otherwise lost. Your customers are happier if you don't send them away, but refer them to somebody. And so many freelancers are afraid if they refer a customer to somebody else that they lose this customer. And of course this can happen, but it's not always true. So you build trust and you build a positive relationship with a customer. If you send him to another freelancer who does the job well, of course, if he does the job bad, maybe you have a problem with your reputation, but you still have a chance that the customer comes back to you. If you say just no, probably the customer is just completely lost for you. From the viewpoint of large Drupal users, or from the viewpoint of large Drupal shops, it would be helpful because they can have much more flexible teams. So, you know how projects work. Sometimes you need a lot of man or woman power, and sometimes not. In the planning stadium, sometimes not. Then you must build up fast. Sometimes you must make it smaller, fast, and a group of freelancers that's available to jump in could create a lot of flexibility about this. And of course recruiting becomes much easier if you have a place where you can go, if you don't have to chase freelancers everywhere and to make posts on website and wait until somebody comes. So I think all involved parties could profit from that. So now I will ask you more questions. So are you already collaborating? So when I ask you these questions, is this your situation sometimes too? Do you have sometimes too many projects? Do you have sometimes, like most of you said yes, you know that situation. So what really interests me is, are you handling this somehow already, or you just do nothing about it and say this is life? So,
I might have an opinion on this.
yes?
Basically, I'm not a freelancer now, but sometime in the past I did some job from time to time for different people, and they are actually coming back to me because they like the code I produced.
Yes.
They are coming back and asking if I could help them, and sometimes I do refer them to other people I know personally, not to some site and find someone there, but to people I know personally. I recommend either a company I know that will do good, or I recommend a freelancer I know personally. And actually I first ask this freelancer I know if he could handle it, and if he can, then I refer them to him.
So it depends on trust for you, I understand. So
Surely, I won't refer anyone to the people I don't know already.
Sure. You want
I
somebody
can
here?
tell about our studio. We are actually a group of freelancers who work together. We have digital studio and design studio, and we also hire freelancer from some websites. We're actually working on system which can provide us to communicate more, how to say, well, to increase our efficiency. I guess the principles which you mentioned can be provided by the system. I mean, system it's very hard to explain. Not system between we have managers and employees, but system.
So no hierarchical system.
Yes, it's like website, but not where you just can download your portfolio, but the website who can manage your process in your studio. So a lot of freelancers can work with this system and be free and always have job and have time to rest, not to be full of projects.
Okay, I understand that. It seems to me that you have a similar idea, and
that's why we came.
put up a website about this already. So does it work well for you? Do many people use it? Does it really help you?
We are actually working on it, so it's
Not live yet.
we have some ideas, and what we want to discuss it and to ask you about your experience, your vision and your experience in this field, because you seems like to be more experienced, and that's kind of thing.
I hope so.
Actually, I don't believe in the system without hierarchy. I think that if there is some smart system which can manage, so some good and very responsible developers will be rock stars and other will be on the bottom of the list. Well, someone should manage this system and think about how it should work, and so the hierarchy is still there. And of course, if you want to do some work with Drupal, with models development, others should do work about management, about psychology stuff, because people can be not so efficient, people can be not enough motivated, and so there is a lot of stuff very difficult to code in the site, in the website. I'm sorry for my not so optimistic view.
I think hierarchies really do not work in such a context. This is why I spoke about self-organizing system. But I think most of the problems you mentioned can be tackled if you take an approach that's similar to what works very well on Drupal.org now. So you also do not have big hierarchies. Of course, there is somebody who decides about certain modules, or there's somebody who decides about code.
As you know, they now struggle a lot of organizational problems and
Yes, sure. You never have a perfect world. Of course, you have these things too. So, any other comments on that? So how do you handle this situation now? I think somebody over here wanted to say something, Mr. Joy? Yes.
Еще есть место.
Martin, what kind of metrics could be applied to measure the positive cycle? We need some kind of metrics on each input-output. What kind of metrics do you use to decide that this system is self-organizing?
Interesting question. So, if it gives a maximum of freedom to the people to decide themselves, so
it doesn't work.
We have the same issue in our local Drupal community. So it's a huge problem to organize people to make some creative process. I mean, a Drupal site in Russia here. It has a lot of problems, and it has a lot of problems with human relation. Because nobody going to pay for this, and people
You got paid back later.
are looking for some reason to do this job. propose some formula or some article to read how to organize self-organized system. Theoretical.
Actually, I spoke about this yesterday in my session about community building, where I gave some suggestions about when people usually contribute and when they usually go away, or just free ride. So just to make it short, because this is another topic, you can get people to contribute if you support a long-term interest in being in a group. So if the interest is only short-term, nobody will really contribute, and you can support long-term interest by things like social systems, or if people feel integrated, they identify with the group, they will stay longer. If people can gain a reputation, they usually stay longer in the group and are more willing to contribute. People, of course, stay with the group if they see that they can receive help there reliably. And of course, what you see all the time in Drupal, if you can have such a visibility with your contributions that you get hired, that would be the fourth step on to foster long-term interest. Because all of these things need some time to build up, and nobody wants to lose that once you have built it up. So people will usually stay long-term in the group. And of course, the same thing applies to a freelancer group. You have the same underlying principles, of course, there. So there are a few more things concerning the website Drupal.ru. Understand it's a place with a lot of fighting.
Yeah.
So to handle this, you need an easily accessible way
For newcomers.
an easily accessible way to handle fights. So there must be a code of conduct. And it must be easy to notify an administrator if something goes wrong, if there is some real misuse. Another? Be careful with the So you need more monitoring of correct behavior from within the community and not from outside the community, because there's only trust in authorities to monitor correct behavior if the authority is part of the group and does not have other interests. So these are the major things. So one more thing is people also tend to contribute more in the long term if they're able to shape the rules in the group. So rules can be good in one time and need some adjustments later. And if people are empowered to participate in shaping the new rules, they identify much more with the group, and they will of course stay longer and be happier to give more contributions if they feel they are listened to. So these are the major points which I recommend thinking about with Drupal.ru, and of course they're also valid if we set up a freelancer system.
Any questions? System requires a kind of reputation system.
Yes.
So reputation system requires voting system.
Yes. So you have 5 stars. You have user points in Drupal. You can build. You can build something like this.
Implementation.
Yes, sure.
But who should have a voice to be able to vote for anything?
So this is not about a finished solution, but one idea would be to avoid misuse of such kind of vote. So many people join and vote one guy very high, or two people just vote each other very high. That you have, that you implement a system where the longer you are in the system, maybe you have more votes.
Or reputation
the
system
people who have
the source of voting.
Yes. So you might implement a self-organizing and self-controlling reputation system where people have more votes or more power to vote if they have earned more reputation themselves already. So that people who have a high reputation already from a larger number of people, not only from one person, have more power to vote than newcomers. But you cannot exclude the newcomers because the newcomers will not stay very long if they think.
There's another system to motivate and to give futures.
So that would be one way to create a self-regulating system. It's not easy, but also not that difficult to implement. You just need a certain algorithm. What keeps you from collaborating more than you do now?
Good question.
I see quite many people came here. There seems to be a need for this. So
Lack of time.
what exactly keeps you from not having this already? Only a lack of time?
Maybe
Planning
we need
of time.
some person who can organize it properly.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Any ideas about that?
A lack of planning.
Unclear benefits maybe. So
Yeah.
if you go to DrupalCamp, you will not earn money for it.
Yes.
So that's it.
But you
What keeps you from cooperating with other
Unclear
freelancers?
benefits from cooperation. Unclear.
Yes, yeah, I understand. I just did not understand why you are.
It's
So what is your
not
connection
my
between
problem,
this
I
and the
just
DrupalCamp?
I see the benefits, but I think that some other developers who don't participate in community life and so on, they just can't see benefits. And in some cases they are right, because they can spend time paid and earn money because they have 8 paid hours a day. But now we just spend this time and nobody will pay us. Indirect benefits.
This is a good idea.
What the future will say.
No problem.
Anyway, Drupal is a brand, and as far as I understand, promoting Drupal as a brand will benefit all the Drupal freelancers and studios.
Sure.
Sorry, I did not understand this. Can you repeat the last sentence?
Promoting Drupal should promote
Should benefit
give profit
everyone.
benefits to everyone.
So that's just a simple idea to understand, for everyone to understand his or her benefit.
Well, I have a counter thought on that. Yesterday me and Ivan actually discussed that, and promoting Drupal means that we are actually always saying that Drupal is free to use, as it is open source. And then the majority of deals, the majority of cases to build a website, if the client knows that he wants a website on Drupal, he basically says that if Drupal is free, I want a site built on Drupal be cheaper than on any other commercial CMS. So if the client wants the site built on Bittrex, for example, he knows that he will need to pay, and he knows that the amount of money he would need to spend on the website is high, and he is ready for that. But then the people want the site built on Drupal, And if they know that it is free CMS, they think that it should be cheaper, and they think that the developers should be cheaper and other stuff. But basically it means that there is a counter fight here in Russia, that clients that want a site on Bittrex, they know that it is...
But does this keep you somehow from collaborating with other freelancers?
No, it's just a counterpart on what they are...
If I can speak about myself, I don't collaborate with other people because sometimes my level of experience and is not the same as the person that I can collaborate. So if we are going to work on one project and he made so he write a bad code and I don't know how to speak with the person who pay money because you can.
В подмастерье надо брать.
Two persons can be connect with как заказчик будет?
Customer.
With the customer. So the customer wants one guy who will connect and who will respond if something goes bad. So after this time, if somebody become this person, he became a leader and he need to review code and make his authority in this depend of another person. So if he made a bad code after it we make a production and I don't review it, I don't spend time to check his work and it will be bad, it will be my fault, not him, because person contact directly to me and he know what maybe I do it with myself or maybe I collaborate with another person. He don't care. He need to solve his problems in a business or in another way. But
Это то, что он говорил про доверие.
So does that mean if you had a better understanding of the skills of other people and of their professionality, that could help the situation?
I think yes, but for this, I think we need to make more code sprints or something like this to see guys in work, not just they like talking about the sales, to see how they do their job.
In my
We
opinion,
should guide the people to guide them how actually they should implement this.
so my
Sorry, plugins against custom code or something like that.
But as you know, there is a different techniques in Drupal.
Yeah, there are many ways to do any feature for a customer. So you as the leader should direct another person to write the code in this way, like you want him to write.
And
But-
as
but
you
after-
are collaborating, you are not the leader who can say you must do this because it's some
That's an
kind of,
issue.
oh no, I don't want to do this because
Exactly,
I'm
right.
very smart girl
That's an
and
issue
I
of
want to do this.
responsibility. That's an issue of responsibility. If I am responsible, then I will tell you you must do it like that.
But
This is the problem.
But after this
Not
happens, there is
all-
no independent. There is a hierarchy.
Yeah, sure.
It's an issue about developer growth. So if I want to become a better developer, I will listen to your advices how to do it better. But I think there is a lot of developers who prefer work as freelancers because they like nobody will say them. You should grow, you should read more, use some standards, I don't know, use some production, stage production, development, environment, so on.
So
They just want
to be free in decision.
Sorry?
They want to be free in decision.
Yeah, and they don't like someone will ask them to do better.
I guess it's, if not we're speaking about Drupal, there are some...
There's a responsibility of the community to make high watermark in quality of product.
Everyone can.
What level of product end user should get using Drupal? So it's a question of community, how they present what can build on top of Drupal.
Yes.
It's a responsibility of community, not the freelancers that can do anything perfect, bad, but the high watermark should set by community and
We're speaking
dictated.
about principles. It's principles. And
Yeah.
if I, like freelancer, agree with this principle, yeah, yeah, sure.
Извини, Андрей, я не понял, а что ты имел в виду?
Что сообщество должно выставить ватерлинию для как бы вот не должно быть меньше качества сайта
Well, then all the
из
freelancers should
коробки.
be involved in the community. If the
Не
freelancers
обязательно
not
все,
involved,
кто не
it's
хотят делать это качество, они могут идти пастись там где угодно.
Под Drupal open source.
Правильно. Но если на Drupal делают говно какое-нибудь,
Ну ты же не можешь кому-то запретить.
Guys, stop speaking Russian.
Drupal in action.
Путина включил.
Now it comes to politics.
This is basically evaluating in some kind of ranking. And this means a Drupal community maybe has some kind of tests for freelancers, for developers. So I'm novice in the community, so I don't know if this is already done.
There can be a developer that passed all the tests but still prefers to write their code.
Why? I just don't understand. If one can write good code, one will write good code.
But will be
The
bad.
tests won't show.
So I'm not really sure what this discussion is about now.
That's
there's a
what
lot
the
of
problem.
questions that
But,
needs collaboration, but it happens now.
But I like the fact that it is so lively.
We are trying to cooperate.
Okay, so we have not much more time. I can give you a few of my ideas now in the remaining time, or we can keep discussing. What do you prefer?
We want to know your ideas, what you want us to know.
We have a session.
Okay, so it's just a few basic things. So I'm going to skip that one. So I actually started to set something up like this. I reserved the domain kittenkiller.guru because Drupalers who hack the core are kitten killers. And in a way they are also gurus, you know. Whenever you hack core, God will kill a kitten. Where you can have your own Drupal specific profile, and where you can give referrals to other members. For now it's only that. I will introduce more things. I will introduce simple project management, which is similar to the way Drupal.org works, because I think that works pretty well. For a very large system like Drupal, they have a pretty simple project management system with the issue queues. So somebody is responsible for a certain area and has, if there's a problem, the final word. But you have self-selection, which is a very important ingredient of self-organizing systems. They have self-selections. Nobody tells you, you do this and you do that. People will never really cooperate very well if they are told to. They just don't have the level of activity and the level of interest. So self-selection is very important, and it works pretty well on Drupal.org, and I think we should have the same here. So for now this is invitation only, because I do not want to have an effect like on Odesk or on renter coder where you have tons of people rushing in with no qualification. But if you're interested to join, just click on contact and write me, I'm interested to join, and I will send an invitation then. So, about the basic structures, of course we need a system to communicate with each other, to build a reputation, and where you can learn about each other's skills. So this is what I heard from you too. If you don't know other people's skills, if you don't know their reputation, then you cannot really refer a project to them. So I think this must be supported on such a system on a very simple level. Yes, I mentioned support of project management already.
Russian Railway.
to avoid situations like this. What you really must handle is liability, which is the question, who is responsible if something goes wrong? This is one of the more difficult questions, but there are some approaches to tackle this. So you can have one person responsible for the project, and this person invites others to participate. Of course, it can be on the invitation and not always self-selection again. So this would be one possible approach. Another possible approach is to have only very short development cycle, like you do it in Scrum. So you can try to minimize development cycles so that the total risk is smaller. This is true for the customer and for the freelancers. So if you have short development cycles, the cost for each development cycle is not so high, and people might be more willing to risk that smaller amount. Another approach could be that there is one instance that collects the money first and only hands it out to the people if everything is okay. So if the work is done right, of course you can combine this. You have payment systems like Mango Pay, which support a similar approach. It's not made for a system like this, but they are actually targeting crowdfunding projects as their customer group. But the principle behind it is the same. They collect money, and they are a trustworthy instance which keeps the money until a certain event happens. In the case of crowdfunding, the event is that the level of funding is reached where the project can start. In our case, this could be the development cycle has been finished successfully, and then the money is distributed. Any questions about that? You look very thoughtful.
I have a question. Who decided how to share profit? I mean, for example, we have in group of project 5 people, and they all have different competence. And who decided which profit each person had?
There are several approaches. I'm not really saying this is the best or that is the best, but you can have different ways to tackle this. The simplest way is to count hours, like it is done on Odesk. Another way is like in Scrum. When you start a new Scrum cycle, you make rough estimations about each task, how much value does it have, and if you have a certain budget to spend on one Scrum cycle, and you get an estimate about how much work must be done on each task, and if you just add the amount of work divided by the available money, you get you get a number of how much every task is worth, and the people who hopefully self-select him or herself to do the task can earn this part of the budget that's available for this. This would be one possible
The question
approach.
about 1 hour, 1 hour of program work and 1 hour, for example, marketing work, is it the equal? Or not?
I think that depends on what is acceptable to the participants. I mean,
That's a very hard question. That's what we discussed about a long time. Is it equal or not?
I do not think that you can set up a fixed rule for this. So I know one company, it's actually a cooperation in Germany, who does exactly that. They say every hour has a certain value, and it does not count what kind of work it is, but it does make some people unhappy. So if it's agreeable to the people who participate, you can do it. But I do not think you can set up a general rule and say this is the way it must be done and this will always work. I think this is more or less a matter of negotiation. But of course, if you are the leader of the project and you say, or the initiator of the project, and you say, I will only accept it if it's done like this, people can choose do I want this or not. It's my opinion.
Each one of freelancer could have own rate marks that could be used as filter for projects, for tests, and it could work back. So it's solvable technically.
There's even another approach that's even more self-organizing. When it's clear which tasks will be part of one Scrum cycle, people can vote for each task, not only for their own task, but people who participate can vote for each task. What do you think it is worth? And then you take an average, but you might adjust this. You might take out the vote of the person who actually takes up the task then, because this person, of course, will rate it very high, very expensive. So let the others vote about what it is worth. So if they make it artificially low, there will be trouble, of course, but then they will understand if they keep repeating this, they will lose their own reputation, because this is not fair play. And if you make this transparent to the whole group, then people will usually try to do a fair estimate to be able to stay in this group and not to lose their own reputation by being a free rider or playing unfair.
Martin, sorry, we have only 3 minutes, I think.
I do this every time.
Yeah, it looks like every time, yeah? Like this feeling not so good, eh?
Okay. So I will skip the rest. Thank you. So if you have any questions about this, I'm happy to discuss this somewhere out there with you, or we exchange contact details if you're interested in discussing more about this.